Okay, I'm just going to give everyone a few minutes or a few seconds to join, and then we'll get started. So just wait just a few seconds. All right, we can get started. So hi, everyone. Welcome to this town hall. It's our 48th town hall. Let's get started. We first have an update from our People Ops team who will be giving an update on hiring, and that will be given by JB. JB?
Thanks for Johnny. Hey everyone. So we're pretty busy on hiring at the moment, so just wanted to quickly run through everything that we're working on and ask for help. So we're looking for a marketing manager for the Keycard team. We've been talking to quite a few candidates for that role, but would still love some more candidates. If you know of any great projects that do marketing really well. We're also looking for a technical writer for NIM, a technical copywriter, 2-month contract for a UI engineer for the core team. We're starting to look at protocol engineers, and we're also doing a lot of interviews for security engineers as well. We really need candidates, I guess, for the first 5 of those roles. We have quite a lot of good security candidates at the moment. I put the stats up on the right. So over the course of history for Status, where we've tracked, we get a lot of hires from the Status website, a lot of hires from job boards, but referrals from contributors are pretty high up there as well. So if you know anyone in any of these types of roles, or if you know any like companies or organizations that do this stuff really well, please let us know and we can take a look. And as a reminder, you can get $5,000 worth of SNT if you refer someone that gets hired and completes their first 90 days. Cool. So yeah, appreciate any help or recommendations that people have got. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, JB. All right, now let's jump over and we have a car update, and this will be given by Rachel.
Yes, sure. Thanks, Rajani. I don't have a whole lot to say today. Just a quick touch base on the V1 progress. We are really in the final stretch here. The 2 scopes of work that are kind of driving the January timeline are the chat command GUI feature, which is going to enable us to distribute SMT to new users when they onboard for the first time. And the UI has been built by Andre. Eric is doing the underlying work and very much work in progress. The UI is actually built and there's a demo available that I haven't linked today, but I can do so from the Discuss post. I think 2 out of 7, that number is wrong, 2 out of 7 critical security issues are already closed. And Adam is owning sort of 2 of the major security issues that remain open. And is in the process of finalizing the implementation plans for how we're going to mitigate those this week. So if you'd like a preview of all of the changes that are coming in V1, there's a lot, and I realize it's a huge delta between the current beta builds that are on the app stores today and the build that people will experience in January. So I've linked to the Discuss thread where we've been keeping people updated on timing, and within that thread, I've shared a video that Andre recorded of himself interacting with a V1 build of the application, so you can get a sense for how much has changed. It's really exciting stuff. And in parallel, we're also starting to look ahead to future versions past V1. We had priorities planning meeting over the past couple of weeks to determine which improvements we're going to focus on once V1 is live, and there's quite a few chat features selected. So in the coming weeks, we'll be defining specs for features like mentions in chat, and then also improved push notifications for Android, sending images, and etc. And we'll be sure to keep updates on those specs posted on Discuss as well. And I think that's it. For the team, I think everybody's aware, but we're planning for December 13th code freeze for V1. And the latter 2 weeks of December will be used for dog fooding internally as a group. That's all. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Rachel. All right, next we're jumping to infrastructure update.
Yeah, thanks, Rajani.
Yep.
So there's been a lot of work regarding the marketing push for the Status Network. The site is up, and we've been doing a lot of moving around of the currently existing sites. So, for example, moving Nimbus Status IM to Nimbus Team and Keycard to its own domain and so on. And there have been also multiple instances of Ghost put up for splitting the news and then collecting them under the Status Network banner. So that's been a big part of work last 2 weeks. Now, from cooler features for the app, we now have, well, not merged yet, but almost there, TCP pinging for mail servers, which will result in much better auto selection of mail servers based on their round trip time, so latency essentially. And we also have a bunch of new metrics which will help us improve, for example, bandwidth usage of Status Go. And we also have metrics on peers connected to our beta fleet after quite a lot of work. So we can gauge how many people are using our software and which versions and on which platforms. For example, differentiating between Android, 32 bits, 64 bits, iOS, and so on. That's about it.
Cool, thanks. All right, next we have a very special presentation that will be given by Hester. So Hester, if you want to go ahead and share your screen, it's all you. Hester, are you speaking? I don't think we can actually hear you.
There we go.
Yep, perfect. Now we can hear you.
Can you see my screen as well?
Yes.
Okay, great. So for those who weren't aware, I spent the last, 9 days in Venezuela, mainly in Caracas, but with some day trip outside of Caracas to understand how payments work. Given the high inflation, it's a fascinating place to understand how people handle money of all sorts, including cryptocurrency. So yeah, this is just to give you some very, very high level insights about the findings there. I just got back this morning, so I'm still in the process of making sense of kind of the madness that goes on there. But basically, I went around together with Alejandro, who works for Value and is one of the founders of the Open Money Initiative. And next to that, Yesman, who is a journalist / fixer, who helped arrange a lot of meetings as well as translations, which gave the opportunity to go around, interview like shop owners, merchants, people, Sunacrib, which is the government agency that runs the petro currency, loads of different parties. Trying to process that in an experience flow where basically you can see, and I'll send this around once it's in a bit more of a polished state, but where you can see that every single step of a payment network has so much complexity to it, at least in Venezuela, and that goes from opening a bank account, which is not straightforward, to the concept of like sharing accounts, which is something that happens a lot. To like the different payment methods that are currently used. Something called Pagomova, which is thriving, which is an interbank payment solution, to the process of like next to like banking and digital payments. How do you even get cash, and what kind of cash is used? So trying to more or less summarize that, but at a very high level, I can say dollarization is pretty rampant. There's been a blackout, I believe it was in March of this year, that lasted for 5 days, which led people to more or less get stuck as digital payments weren't working, and find a resolution in dollars that they had lying around somewhere. And even while the dollar at the time was prohibited in use due to sanctions and political consequences, people started using the dollar, and this is what you see everywhere inside certain centers of Caracas at the moment, that dollar is becoming a predominant payment method. But there's definitely some complexity around that, as in dollar has like a $1 note is already quite a high denomination for a lot of people kind of trying to make a living and not being able to afford the, let's say, the value of $1, which is a massive amount. For some, so that's like running into some issues because things are just basically getting too expensive, even more expensive. Another thing that I think is a highlight worth mentioning, and I'll give this a go as an experiment because I'm not sure if audio will be shared, but is a short video clip that shows how PagoMóvil is used. This is the interbankery solution, which is basically an app supported by most of the banks in Venezuela. And what I find interesting is that this is the more or less preferred solution at the moment. And in the video clip, you can see that it requires a lot of information to be shared vocally or on paper in order to make a payment. And that the confirmation is either received by SMS, or in the case that the recipient doesn't have a phone, it's basically just the buyer confirming, here, see, this is my screen, I just made the transaction. So just give me a shout because I'm not sure.
Oh, we can see really how Sarah is kind of the experience flow page.
Okay, hold on. Okay, let me, in that case, I'll share the video because I can tell that will probably be a better solution in figuring it out now. But
yeah, we can just see the workflow page still.
Okay, yeah, that's totally fine. I'll pick it up from there, and I'll send a link to a video snippet. If you watch it, just yeah, pay attention to how much information is shared vocally, which is all required to make a banking transaction. So that part's interesting. Dollarization is very interesting, and the consequences of that. Another thing that is interesting is that Ethereum is just simply not a thing at all, which is something that we are heavily focused on. Even though cryptocurrency is definitely picking up, Ethereum is not a part of that at the moment. And then obviously, because I imagine Petro is of interest, as in like, is it real or not? Whenever we ask people about it, they would kind of start laughing, like, I'll accept anything, any form of payment except Petro. At the same time, it is real. I managed to open a Petro wallet account, and Yasmin, who I was traveling with, actually managed to make a payment in Petro. It's definitely not a straightforward process. It's unclear what kind of like blockchain is behind it at the moment, but it is working, and it's definitely something that the government has all the capabilities to push in terms of let's say taxation and providing current subsidies in the form of Petro. So that's definitely something that is still like very much on the table. Right, so I'll share a link to that video. Just keep an eye on how much information is shared. I'll also share a link to this flow that kind of shows the process and all the difficulties with getting digital cash, paying with digital, digital money, paying with digital money, getting actual cash, which also means going to shady offices to buy cash that originates from drug dealers. It's part of everyday life in Venezuela. Very interesting process. Includes bartering as well, which is common as soon as you leave Caracas, but also in the city, and payments with cryptocurrency, which even though it's still not very, like it's by far predominant, it's still very much a geek thing. It's definitely standing out compared to other countries in terms of how flexible or open people are to crypto solutions. So that part's interesting. In that flow that I'll share, there's like a brief overview of some of the sources, like some of the people that that we talk to. It's not exhaustive, because there's a lot of people that we kind of basically talk to on the go while making payments. I mean, we make loads of payments during a day. Most people actually ask questions too. Some of the insights that I do really want to call out are basically split up in like two challenges. One is like, what if we were to market a product in a country like Venezuela, or potentially Argentina as it's developing now? And at the same time, what does it mean for the product development side, of the actual interaction with the product? On the marketing and business side, what I found from talking to some of the businesses in the crypto space, the ones that are in Venezuela and that are relatively successful are local, let's say at least owned by locals to Venezuela, working out of another country, either Panama or Colombia. It seems virtually impossible to do any business without local contacts. So maybe jumping to like the fifth point that I mentioned under marketing and business is that we do really need to start defining what kind of partnerships might be acceptable for us, because a payment network runs way beyond a payment terminal or a single payment interaction, and all the way up to a supply chain, given that people need to be able to use the money that they are paid in. In order to do that, the chain is so extensive and relies on personal connections and local knowledge to anticipate regulatory implications, which are very much ambiguous. That this is virtually impossible to do without local partnerships. So we need to start understanding what kind of collaborations might work for us, given that none of them are decentralized. Then on the product side, I say one thing to call out is looking at like what would be like a solution problem fit, like what are some of the problems that exist in that market, and what are let's say unique features of like either a key card solution or some of the solutions that we can provide, and how does it fit with different populations. Looking at like the problems that exist and the solutions we offer, some might actually be very useful for everyone outside of the 1%, outside of the wealthy scope, in terms of getting account access. Loads of people don't have access to a bank account, or they do have access, but they share bank accounts, as well as just finding a stable currency in general. So in terms of like solution to a problem, there's actually a lot of people that might be helped by some of our offering. But if we look at like how we are currently implementing those solutions compared to the devices people use and networks that they're on, the solution is actually a much better fit for the 1% that has a more high-end phone, a stable network, that make it much easier to interact with some of the solutions that we're thinking of. So there's a mismatch there that's not necessarily a problem if we think about like long-term road mapping, but it might be good to start thinking about like what an ideal product would look like for the let's say the not 1%, everyone else. I made a start of that, but I definitely want to put some more thought into that and discuss with both the KeyCard and the Teller team what that might look like. I think I'm 1 out of breath and 2 out of what I managed to summarize in this time. Venezuela is fascinating and bizarre in many ways. Caracas is a crazy city, which people say, or tend to say, life is fucked, but I live in Caracas, so everything's good. And that's more or less what things are like. It's completely crazy on many levels, including payments. So there are many more insights, but I'll share the files that I have prepared now, and I'll organize somewhat of a Q&A session to go in more detail. That's all I had, Rajani. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Hester. Really amazing presentation. I'm actually going to give an opportunity if anybody has any questions, if they want to ask Hester right now. If you can't think of any, you can always save them for the end, or if you're on YouTube, if you want to ask the questions, we can always save them for now. So does anybody have any questions?
I would definitely like to dig into that file that you shared, Hester, on my own, so that I can ask you questions based on your text. It's very interesting stuff, and I'd like to dig in a little bit deeper first.
Well, it makes sense. It's all very dense, and like finding the highlights is hard. Like we tend to look for logic. Venezuela is not logical. There's nothing logical about it.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much, Hester. Really amazing stuff. Now let's jump over to Johnny, and Johnny will be presenting on the Status Network.
Hey, thanks, Rajani.
Yep.
So yeah, today really excited to introduce the Status Network. So a lot of us, the core contributors and ambassadors in our core community know how much work goes on at Status, but I think the larger community and even the media still perceive Status as a mobile application only. So today we're introducing the Status Network, which starts to reposition us as an ecosystem of projects, an ecosystem of products, developer tools, and infrastructure to empower local communities to transact securely, communicate freely, and organize with confidence. So when you look at this full suite or this stack of products, our offering becomes very powerful and very usable by anyone. So really excited to introduce this today. Yeah, and I mean, looking at our stack, everything is interoperable yet open source. So anyone can use these tools however they like, but when you use them together, the offering becomes very powerful, as I've said before. So yeah, excited to introduce this. Next slide. So once again, this isn't really new to us, but we're doing this to educate the larger community, just so we get credit for everything that's going on within the network. Our focus is secure communication, obviously. So Status, the work that Oscar and Dean are doing with VAC, apps for private communication for people to organize freely, right? That's one element of it. The other element is, frictionless commerce, tools to trade and access open financial services. And then finally, mobile-friendly solutions. So Status is, mobile application. Nimbus is designed for resource-restricted devices. And when you look at these three things together, once again, the stack becomes extremely powerful and extremely practical and useful in real life. So once again, we've launched this to just help educate everyone, primarily the larger community and then media, of what is going on within Status, just to get credit for everything and make sure people understand that it's more than just a mobile application. And then, as Jakob mentioned earlier, we've been also shifting sites off of the status.im domain to help build brand equity within each one of the projects themselves, right? So Nimbus is now nimbus.team, Keycard is keycard.tech. And while we will be building brand equity and pushing out comms for each individual project, they'll all kind of live within the Status Network umbrella or ecosystem. And then part of that also is this new website, the Status Network, and a new blog that we've built with the help of Jakob. So basically this new blog, it pulls in all of the news from within the network from the individual blogs. And it's pretty cool. Check it out. And then also it just kind of gives you a snapshot into everything that's going on while retaining brand identity for each one of the projects. So really excited for this. And hopefully people really start to understand all of the work that's going on and how everything kind of works together in this interoperable way. So over the course of the next few weeks and pretty much until the end of the year, we'll be releasing comms around, the various components of the network, how they work together, S&T's role in the network as kind of a cohesive thread between everything. And then also how our principles kind of shape and form everything and kind of serve as the, once again, another one of those connective tissues between all of the projects. So stay tuned for that. And, if anyone ever has questions, feel free to ping me or in Discuss. We can answer anything there. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Johnny. It looks amazing. Okay, so I think that it was it for our updates today. We have one question that was submitted via status questions, the town hall questions, and it was regarding V1 readiness. So how is status prepared for the onboarding of new users of V1, specifically hardware/software? Has the team had to put in place extra nodes to help alleviate any technical issues given the potential large influx of new users? Who would like to take a stab at answering this question?
I can talk to that.
Go for it.
Currently, the beta fleet, which will become the prod fleet, is severely overscaled for what the current number of users is. Now, it is true, we could be overwhelmed with a number of users, so there's definitely something to be said about overscaling even more, at least temporarily. But yeah, I have that in mind, so no worries.
Cool. Anyone else? All right, so now I am going to stop streaming off YouTube. Thank you everyone for for joining on YouTube. If you want to stay and join the discussion at the end, feel free to join us in the Zoom link.